everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and I'm a stay-at-home mom of 2 young kids, and I'm happy you stopped by. Today I'm going to be sharing 5 meals that we had for dinner this week. Some of the meals were really simple, I didn't even serve them with sides, and some of the meals were pretty complicated and took a little bit of time, but they were so worth the effort. I even made a loaf of bread, which I haven't done in a little bit, and that turned out super yummy as well. So with all that, let's go ahead and get started into what we had for dinner this week. Up first, I made a sausage breakfast bake, and I made this fairly early in the day. I think I made this at about 11 a.m. This was a day that we had a tremendous amount of snow and we definitely weren't going anywhere, and we had a pretty high risk of losing our electricity as well. So I kind of wanted to make some sort of casserole meal to last us through the day. To start making this meal, you're going to go ahead and take 1 pound of ground sausage and start browning that in a pan. I went ahead and added some diced peppers and onions that I had sitting in my freezer to use them up and also for the flavor, because I really enjoy onions and peppers with sausage. Most sausage already comes pre-seasoned to some capacity, but I go ahead and also add in some additional salt and pepper. I also added in about 2 tablespoons of minced garlic, and I go ahead and mash that up really fine with my meat masher because that's just the consistency that we enjoy. I went ahead and let the sausage brown down in the pan because I really enjoy a deep caramelization on sausage. And of course I had to add in some paprika because I add paprika to everything. I just turned my burner off and went ahead and started working on the crust part of this bake. And here I just have a can of Crescent rolls, and I'm going to go ahead and try to raw smash them open. And they really were fighting to stay closed, but I eventually got it. So you could make your life a little easier and just get the sheet of Crescent dough, but they don't have an off-brand variety of that yet, so I just bought the regular Crescents, and you can easily just flatten them into a square on the bottom. Then I went ahead and started to prepare the egg mixture. So here I have 8 eggs, and I'm going to prepare them how I always prepare my scrambled eggs, which is adding in some seasonal salt, freeze-dried chives, black pepper, and some amount of sour cream proportionate to the eggs. So here I'm adding in about 2 tablespoons worth for 8 eggs. And since this is going to be a breakfast bake, I'm also going to add in some heavy whipping cream, which I do not normally add to my regular scrambled eggs, but since it's a bake, I do like a sort of custardy consistency with my eggs in those, so that's why I'm adding the heavy whipping cream here. After you get your eggs whisked up really well, you're going to go ahead and just assemble the breakfast bake. So you already have your Crescent roll laid out, and you're just going to go ahead and put as much sausage on top as you want. I debated saving some of this sausage for later, but I figured I would go ahead and just add all of it in. Here I had about a cup of cheese left, so I went ahead and added half right on top of the sausage and then poured the egg mixture over top of the sausage and cheese. I don't think this next step is necessary, but I really just wanted to use up the rest of the cheese that I had because I only had a small handful left, so I just put a little bit extra on top. Once you get all the layers of your breakfast bake assembled, you're going to go ahead and put this in the oven at 375 for about 30 to 40 minutes, and that's really just going to depend on how well you want your eggs done. And this is what you get whenever you're all done. I just put some hot sauce on top, and this was a pretty good meal. No complaints, definitely filling and very comforting on a snowy day. Next up, we just had some sloppy joes. So just like most of my other savory recipes, we're starting out with some butter and onions in a skillet, just caramelizing those down a little bit. And to that, I'm gonna go ahead and add 1 pound of ground beef and start mincing that up. Ever since I discovered it, I have been using the Pioneer Woman's Sloppy Joe recipe, and it's super. I'm definitely going to have it linked below. I highly recommend you try it. It is a little bit of a kitchen sink recipe. Thankfully, most of the things you need are probably just pantry staples for you anyways. So here I'm just seasoning the ground beef with some salt, pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, a tiny, tiny little bit of crushed red pepper, and a big old scoop of garlic. Maybe about a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. And then go ahead and just give that a stir and let all of those spices kind of toast up and blend together. Now we're going to go ahead and start our second round of seasoning. So to it, I'm going to add a couple dashes of hot sauce, which this part is optional. If you don't want this to have any spice, definitely leave that off. Ree's recipe calls for dry mustard powder, which I do have. I just honestly prefer putting regular yellow mustard in this instead. So I put about a tablespoon of that in, about a 1/4 cup of ketchup, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, and then about 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Once again, go ahead and stir this all up and let the flavors blend together. Then you're going to add anywhere between 1 to 2 cups of water to the mixture. This is going to help tenderize your ground beef and also give you a sauce. Once you get all of the water that you want added in, you're going to go ahead, pop a lid on this, and you're going to let it simmer down for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. While the sloppy joes were simmering, I wanted to go ahead and try something I saw on TikTok that is supposed to help reduce the waste of tomato paste cans, and basically you just put it in a Ziploc bag and freeze this and break those off as you need them. I've never tried it before, so we'll see if it works. I honestly didn't serve any sides with this. None of us were feeling exceptionally hungry on this night, and the kids ended up having oatmeal because this is not their jam. Still, this recipe is really good. It is my favorite sloppy joe recipe. It's really simple and it's made with mostly pantry ingredients. Please try it. You will probably never use a canned sauce ever again. Now we're moving on into next day's meal, and the first part of this was preparing some homemade bread. Now, because it's baking, that means that my kids wanted to help me make it, and of course I said yes because I love cooking with them. So sorry that the shots aren't super great here, but honestly I find it more important to cook with my kids than get a perfect shot. So to this big bowl, they helped me add 3 cups of bread flour. You can also use all-purpose flour, and that's what I used. 1½ teaspoons of instant yeast, 1½ teaspoons of sugar, and 1½ teaspoons of salt. Give that all a good mix, then go ahead and add in 1½ cups of lukewarm water and combine that all together. Now, this is going to be a very wet and sticky dough. So if you decide to give this recipe a try and the dough is sticking to the sides of the bowl and your spatula, don't worry, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. Once you get that all mixed up, go ahead and cover it, and you're gonna let it rest covered for about 1 to 2 hours until it's doubled in size. Then you're gonna take 2 forks and you're going to pull the dough from the side of the bowl because this dough is super duper sticky. worry, keep working it. I promise it'll come together. So you're gonna take your super sticky dough and you're gonna drizzle about 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil on top, and you're going to kind of roll it around in the olive oil and try to make a dough ball. Then you go ahead and just put it in a heavily buttered loaf pan, and you're going to let this rise until the dough is crowning over the top of the loaf pan. You're going to bake this at 375 for 45 minutes and let it rest for 30, and look at this. This was so good. This bread was perfect. I've been searching for a bread with a crispy crust and like a very soft middle, and this is it, guys. This bread is perfect. It is not cakey at all. Now I'm going to go ahead and move on into preparing the main portion of this meal, which is going to be a Parmesan ranch chicken. So I'm going to go ahead and start with 3 chicken breasts and season them with salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, Italian seasoning, lemon pepper seasoning, and paprika. If you've been here for a minute, you probably know that this is my normal lineup for chicken, and I stand behind this. It's my tried and true. It's good in just about every chicken recipe I try. I have about 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of olive oil in my cast iron, and I have this over medium-high heat, and I'm going to go ahead and just try to get a sear on both sides of my chicken. While the first side of the chicken is searing, I figured I would go ahead and get started on the sauce for this chicken. Think kind of Longhorn Steakhouse Parmesan chicken. Honestly, I made this sauce up by looking at a whole bunch of different Longhorn Steakhouse copycat recipes and also adding my own personal flair to it. I'll try my best to leave my recipe guesstimation down below. To it, you're going to add equal parts sour cream, ranch, and grated Parmesan cheese, then about a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, and as much Italian seasoning and paprika as you would prefer in this. Here we're going to go ahead and flip our chicken over, and we're not really worried about cooking them all the way through because we are going to go ahead and put this in the oven, so we just want to get a sear on the second side. Now you could either just leave your chicken in the cast iron if you were using one, or you can transfer it to an oven dish. I usually prefer to transfer it to an oven dish. So here I'm just going ahead and putting the ranch sauce that I made on top of 2 pieces of the chicken. The third one is for the kids, so I'm leaving it plain. And then I'm just making a quick panko topping made out of panko breadcrumbs, some butter, and some shredded Parmesan cheese. My kids would not like the sauce, but they would enjoy the panko topping, so I put some of that on their piece of chicken. Now I know we all know how to make a box of rice-a-roni, so I'm not trying to tell you how to do that. I just wanted to give you a little tip that if you maybe fried up some chicken before you needed to make your rice-a-roni, go ahead and leave the chicken drippings in the pan. The back of the box is going to tell you to brown the rice in some butter, but skip that part and just brown it in your chicken drippings, and it's going to give you a flavor bomb of rice. And this is my favorite way to make the rice-a-roni, so definitely give it a try. Here we go, the chicken out of the oven, the homemade bread, and then I just served it up with some side salad. That's the Sam's Club Maple Honey Dijon Apple Crisp Salad. It's still our favorite. It is so good. This meal is super good. It's pretty close to a Longhorn Parmesan chicken copycat. It has a little more forward of a ranch flavor, but I don't mind that. I think it tastes really good, and this is easily my favorite meal of the week. Next up, I just didn't feel like cooking, so I just wanted to include a little bit of real life here and also do a slight review. Because if you're like me, I'm always skeptical of any frozen chicken or prepackaged chicken because honestly, I'm just really picky with the taste of them. So I wanted to give a quick review of the Members Mark orange chicken. It was really, really good. It was actually crispy and the pieces of chicken inside tasted very real and honestly really good. I don't have any complaints about this. This is a great price and this was honestly a really nice option to have for a quick meal because I just served this up with some easy instant pot rice and dinner was done with very little effort. And I just wanted to remind you, it's okay to have meals like that. Remember, food is not moral. For the last meal of the week, I made some goulash, and I've never tried goulash before. However, I did see Taylor Elmore make goulash last week on her What's for Dinner, and her recipe is the first recipe I've seen that it actually looked really interesting to me and it looked super yummy. So I'm going to have her What's for Dinner video linked down below in the description box. Definitely give her channel a look. She's one of my favorite YouTubers. And she has the entire recipe listed out with exact measurements and all the spices she uses because I did use a few different spices because I did not have everything that she had. It still turned out super good and I highly, highly, highly recommend checking out her original video to see how she makes it. Anyways, onto the recipe. I just have some ground beef and onions browning in my Dutch oven, and to it I'm going to go ahead and add all of the spices that she recommends. The part that was different for me was she used some adobo seasoning and I did not have that, so instead I used some Tony's Creole seasoning and that worked out just fine. I don't know what it was supposed to taste like, but this way turned out really good too. Next, I'm just going to go ahead and add in a can of petite diced tomatoes, a can of tomato sauce, a little bit of Worcestershire, and the recipe calls for beef broth, but I never keep beef or chicken broth in stock. I always just use these Knorr powders, so I went ahead and put the appropriate amount of powder in for the amount that's called for in the recipe. Give it a stir and you're going to go ahead and let this simmer down for about 15 minutes. While that was simmering, I was just going ahead and getting the cheddar cheese ready that you will need. Guys, I gotta be honest with you too. Deep dark kitchen fear right here. I am not a fan of box cheese graters, but you know, my laziness really wins over me sometimes and I don't feel like assembling and washing the KitchenAid shredder, so here we are, tackling our fears one moment at a time. After the 15 minutes that your goulash is simmering for the first time, you're going to go ahead and add in 1 cup of dry elbow macaroni and let it simmer down for another 10 to 15 minutes until the noodles are tender. Then you're going to go ahead and add in about a half a cup of cheese. And if you want to make it look extra cheesy, you can go ahead and add some more on top and throw the lid back on and let it just kind of steam melt. I guess for all the other days that we weren't feeling super hungry, we were definitely feeling very hungry today because all the carbs sounded delicious. So to go along with the goulash, I just made us each a grilled cheese. And guys, this was so good, like so good. I was really impressed because honestly, goulash never looked appetizing to me, but her recipe looked like a home run, and it totally was. Please go check out her channel and definitely check out her recipe. That's going to wrap up this week's What's for Dinner, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this sort of content, please make sure to give me a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!